Hello YouTube, this is Nico Charger here, and today I am going to show you guys my science fair project that I recently entered into the Detroit Metropolitan Area Science Fair a couple days ago. So basically the name of my project is Camber Game, and as you can expect, I based my project on camber. Now, before I go into explaining what camber is and all of that, allow me to go into a little bit of background on the project. So the project, basically, I came in, I don't want to say fourth place, but I came in pretty close to winning the science fair. I didn't go in to winning the first, second, and third place, but I came in very, very close. Another thing is that this project won second place in the Society of Automotive Engineers car subcategory. I won second place in that. So they gave me a certificate. I will be in the magazine, and I also won a money prize. So without further ado, let's go into detail about the project. So, oh yeah, one more thing before I go in. The paint scheme of the car and the board match each other. Just wanted to point that out because a lot of people at the science fair, I don't think they actually realize that. So without further ado, here is the certificate that I won. Here is the board placement that told me where to put my board at. Here is a paired here's a paired t-test, a bar graph that went along with it, along with all the paired t-tests that I had assistants to help me make all of this. And then we have the research paper. So, yep, there's a research paper. If you would like to see the research paper, then you can private message me. I will put that out there, or I will just put a link in the description. In fact, I might just put a link in the description. Okay, so onto the board. The purpose of my experiment was to find out what camber is and how will it affect this RC car. So without further ado, let's go into camber. Camber is the angle of the wheels. So let me get something to help you. So when you're looking at a car from head on, you want to look at the front wheels. So let's take the front wheels off of this car. So here's no camber. The wheels are going straight up and down. Negative camber is when the top of the wheels start to point inwards towards the car. Positive camber is when the wheels start to point outwards, away from the car. This is not to be confused with toe in, which is the same thing basically, but with toe, it is looked upon from above. I am talking about camber. So, from my research, I thought that a camber angle of -1 would work the best. Now, I tested three different camber angles of -1, 0, and +1. So, here's the car that I tested it on, right here, and I actually have one of the wheels still apart, so I can show you guys on this. So, this is positive camber. That is not a +1. That is a major camber angle of positive, and that's my phone ringing in the background. This is 0, and this is a negative camber, which again, you would not see that on too many cars unless they're a drift car. Alright, so without further ado, let's move back to the board. Okay, so the purpose was to find out how camber would affect the RC car, and my hypothesis was if the RC car has a camber angle of -1, then it will perform at its best. Materials, I took one hobby grade RC car, 7 pop bottles to use as markers. Traffic cones may also be used, 1 hex key, a camber measure, and an open field of at least 30 feet by 30 feet, and a stopwatch. And there's my very long procedure. So anyway, let's move back over here to the data. So from the data, I found out that a camber angle of -1 did the best, camber angle of +1 did slightly better, and the camber angle of 0 did the worst. The applications. So they don't do it with these cars, I don't think, or maybe they do. I have to brush up on my research. But hobby grade RC companies, they actually pay people to race these cars. They sponsor those racers, buy them cars and stuff. So they might take my board and say, well, if I'm driving on a snow-covered track, maybe I could use this kid's science project because he said that a camber angle of -1 did the best. So, further investigating. Next year for the science fair, because I'm only in the 10th grade, so I will be there in my 11th grade year, I will probably focus in on the toe angles. And one more thing. Let's show some pictures. And I'll probably just flash some of these pictures, edit them in throughout the video so you guys can see that, because I know this kind of looks like crap. But let's see, any problems? There were some problems. A lot of the judges told me that my data was off. See, there is a time difference of about 3 to 4 seconds from my highest time to my lowest time, and the judges were saying that it seems a little bit inconsistent, which is why I got these paired t-tests. But even with the paired t-tests, they still did not like the fact that my data was so far apart, and a lot of this has to do with with how I wanted my data to be, because I really wanted my data to be dramatic. So, as you can see from this picture, and I'll probably splice in the picture of this, you can see that the truck is driving on snow and ice, and there's a pothole in front of it. And I decided to do that because it would make the results more dramatic, because if the times were all the same, since we're talking about a car that is less than 2 feet long, then I said I need my results to be a little bit more dramatic and stand out. But it turns out that you want your results to seem to float around in the same area. Another reason why this project didn't go so well is due to the fact that this car has a high center of gravity chassis. If you peel this back, you'll notice all the weight, including the heavy battery, the motor, and the ESC and the servo, are placed way up in the air. It is so far up ahead in the air that even Traxxas, the manufacturer, they re-released this car with a lower center of gravity chassis, as well as several aftermarket companies. So when you combine this car's high center of gravity chassis, and basically all high center of gravity means is that the weight is high up in the air. When you combine that with the fact that it's driving on snow, ice, and etc., then you're going to get some dramatic results. And that's what the judges really didn't seem to like. So now I am going to stop the camera and come back for part 2, where I explain why negative camber did the best. So this is part 2 of the video, and now I'm going to explain why the negative camber did the best. So I'm going to get my wheels, if I can find them, because they are laying around somewhere and I can't find them, so I'll have to use these. So this is why the negative camber did the best, and I'm going to try my best to explain it. Basically what happens is, when you're going around the corner, I don't know if you ever felt this, but when you're going around, when you make a sharp left-hand turn, you might feel that you're leaning to the right, or the car is kind of rocking to the right as you're turning. And the perfect example would be like this. You're turning, but yet the car is going like this. It's actually turning as it's going to the left. So what happens is, when you feel that sensation, this is what happens. When the tires are going around and they're at a negative, this inside wheel is losing traction because it's still at that negative camber. The wheel on the outside, however, because the vehicle is rocking to the right, it is gaining camber. So that's where I get the camber gain from. So since that wheel is gaining camber, then since the car has a differential which is going to send more power to this tire on the outside, and it has more traction in the wheel on the inside, the car quickly goes over to make that left-hand turn. Same thing with the right-hand turn. The wheel on the outside gains camber, so it is now at a 0. The wheel on the inside gets a negative camber, and that car swings around. So, from my research, I found out that this is based off of a short course truck. But the only thing is that this car has an independent rear suspension, whereas real short course trucks have a solid axle, which means it does not move independently, which means if I move this, the other side would have moved. But real cars like the ones that we see every day, like, let's see, this Chrysler Imperial, this regular Dodge Camaro, these type of cars actually have a camber angle of +1. You might be saying, why a +1? And I'm going to explain that. You see, this negative camber setup is only meant for our high performance situations because it can make it hard for the driver to turn, because you have something called steering axis inclination. What that means is when the car tries to turn, the wheels are actually pointing downwards. So as you turn, as the wheels are turning, they are pointing down. And the way to test this is to get in a car and turn the wheel left and right, and you might feel the car rock back and forth or go up a little bit. And before I go on, most of this information I found in a YouTube video. I forgot the guy's name, but I am going to put an annotation link, maybe somewhere right in this area or down below in the description area, because I want to give that guy credit, because that's where I got this information. If it wasn't for him, I couldn't say all of this. But anyway, it's called steering axis inclination. When you turn, the wheels want to go down as they're turning. And you might say, well, why is that? And that's because of downforce. So when this car is going 60, 70 miles per hour and you let go of that wheel, gravity and the downforce of this aerodynamic body is forcing down on the car. So when you let go of the wheel, that forces the wheels to go back straight. Now, what happens is, for an older person or a person that's weak, they don't feel like trying to lift the weight of the car. And that is also called the scrub radius, I believe. And I'll put an annotation link if I made a mistake. But I believe it's called the scrub radius. And that is the amount of contact patch that the tire is dragging across the ground as it is turning and going down at the same time. So for an older person with that negative camber, they are actually fighting against the gravity, the car's weight, the car's strength, the car's momentum, downforce. They're fighting against that. So what the car companies did was, they said, well, let's give the cars a slight bit of positive camber, so only a small portion of the tire touches the ground. That gives it less friction. That means that it is easier to turn those wheels back and forth. And you might say, well, with negative camber, only a small portion of the wheels are touching the ground. So why didn't they just use negative camber? And that is a good point. Well, basically, now I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this because I'm not too sure. I couldn't back this up with any research. So this is only my opinion. When the wheels are leaning inwards like this, the only portion that is touching the wheel is facing towards the car. Whereas when you lean it outwards, there is this part of the tire is touching the ground. So with cars, you want to make them as wide as they can possibly be. Now, with regular cars, they can only be as wide as the road allows them to. So if they get a wider stance by leaning the tires out, well, they're going to choose that other than leaning the tires in. Let's see. How would I go further? Because next year I am going to do a continuation of this project. I am going to do toe angles. And what toe angles is, I kind of touched on it at the beginning of this. Well, if you look at a car from underneath or from the roof area, you can look at the tires. The way I like to think about it is if a person is if they have pigeon toe. If they're pigeon-toed, their feet will point inwards when you look down at their feet. So that is called toe-in on a car. Now, when a person is slew-footed or out-footed, then their feet are going to point outwards. That is called toe-out. Normally, from what I heard, you want to have toe-out on the front of the car. And the reason for that is when you are getting ready to make a turn, the inside wheel, so let's say we're making a right-hand turn, if I was to turn both of these tires at the same degree, so let's just say this is 25 degrees, if I was to turn them, then this inside wheel is actually going to be more at an angle than the outside wheel. So that means that it is making a steeper turn. When you combine that with the negative camber and the differentials, then that means that you are definitely swinging around that corner. Now, on the rear wheels, you want to have a little bit of toe in, where the wheels are facing in towards the car. And you might say, well, why is that? I want to be able to turn faster. Well, in the case with the back wheels, you want to have a little bit of toe in because that gives the car more traction. That means that these two tires are fighting each other to stay in place because it's making this right-hand tire, which will be on your left, so to you, this left-hand tire is fighting to go this way, and the right-hand tire is fighting to go this way. So they're going like this, keeping the car together, keeping it planted on the road. So, with that being said, I think I am going to end this video. Nico Charger signing out. Pieces.